Chocolate, yummy chocolate. It's so super.
As many of you may have noticed, we're deaccessioning cookbooks. Everything's online these days. Some of our favorites I'll always keep. This, however, is a recipe that I've adapted from Joni Shockett's weekly Jewish Advocate column. She's a great food writer and a great writer and a great friend. I hope you'll enjoy it too. Please preheat your oven to 350 and put 5 tablespoons of margarine to melt on your stovetop in a pot. I don't really like to use aluminum foil. I don't think it's good for the environment, but this is an untrustworthy springform pan, so I'm putting some on the bottom. To make the crust, you use 2½ cups of almond flour. These days, sometimes ingredients are tough to find. It's so easy to make your own almond flour. All you have to do is grate it up in your food processor till it looks a bit like flour. You might want to mute your sound because my machine is very noisy. Now you saw that I put in about a cup of almonds, and I get a little bit more than a cup of ground, which doesn't make any sense to me, but there it is. Trader Joe's sells a product called Just Almond Meal, which really is like almond flour. You can see at the top, this is their almond meal, and this is what we just made. We're gonna melt 5 tablespoons of par of margarine. Please understand, this crust is like give or take. You can bake it, not bake it. You can add 2 to 4 tablespoons of cocoa powder if you want it to be a chocolate crust. Whatever it is, it's gonna be delicious.
Go.
I'm putting my almond flour back into my food processor, which in my case is actually rather small. I'm putting in 1/4 cup of light brown sugar in this case, and I'm putting in 1/4 teaspoon of, in this case, vanilla extract, but generally the recipe calls for almond extract. It's the only recipe I make that calls for almond extract, so I haven't bought any. I'm gonna and then pour it into my pan. I suppose I could be politically correct and use utensils for everything. All those who have had meals at my house, please forgive me if you're now, for the first time, finding out these are my favorite utensils. I do promise that I wash them with soap carefully. Okay, I've put those ingredients into the pan, and now I'm going to add the margarine. And then the goal is to get it to stick up the sides and into the bottom of the pan. It doesn't really matter, other than you are going to be putting the filling in here, so maybe if you don't bake it, the sides will come down a bit, but it's all very tasty. I'm now going to put this into the oven for about 15 minutes. You'll smell it if it's getting too done, but 15 is about right. I generally make this in a very pretty fluted Tart pan, and it comes out beautifully. I can't find the bottom, so if you borrowed it, could you give it back? And if you make this in a smaller pan, then you'll find that the sides will come up further. Now we'll make the filling. Start with a can of coconut milk. It doesn't need to be coconut cream, but it should not be low-fat coconut milk. I try to shake the can vigorously before so that it will all, the fat and the milk will blend. I'm now going to warm this up on the stove top. And I don't want it to be on too high a flame. I want it to come to almost a boil. So this is what the coconut milk looks like when it's just right. You can see the edges boiling a bit, but it's not coming to a full boil. I put my chocolate chips into a glass container or a bowl, and I pour a cup of this heated milk, coconut milk, over it, and I let it sit for 2 to 4 minutes to soften the chocolate. So I start to play with it a bit after about 2 minutes, so it starts to help the chocolate melt. I add a teaspoon of vanilla, and this time I mean vanilla. And then I put in 1/3 cup of seedless raspberry jam. Now, I've made this with apricot jam. I haven't yet tried it, but I intend to with blueberry jam, but go for the least amount of sugar and no seeds. And I'm stirring. This is what my pie crust looks like when it's just toasted at the edges and ready to be filled. The next important step is to clean the spoon. This goes in the refrigerator just enough to set. If you leave it too long, then your berries will sink instead of sit nicely. As you can see, there's a soupiness to it. When I placed this in the refrigerator, I ended up tipping it. So some of the brown over on the nice outer shell is just the filling. So this is set just enough so that my raspberries sit. They sink, but they're not all the way down. And you can make whatever design you like. Symmetrical, thrown on top, but you do want the bottoms of the raspberries down. And then this will set a while. It can stay in the refrigerator a couple of days easily. And when we open it, you'll see how pretty it is. So now I'm placing it on its serving dish. I'm opening the outside, giving it a little jiggle, and there you have it. Your raspberry tart.